I had a friend tell me that I always talk about my pops, and he would call me boy. He said, "Boy, I did this, I did that. You're just a chip off the old block." He said that you don't talk about your mom as much. And I said, well, I have the things in my heart that my mama would say, and one of the biggest things that she would say is, "Son, you could do anything that you put your mind to." But when she passed away, I realized what she actually meant, because at first, especially growing up in Lompoc, California, in a one-bedroom apartment at one point with like 5 people, when she was saying you could do anything that you put your mind to, I was thinking, Mom, you don't understand what we're going through. Well, she was going through it with us, and she was working, 16, 18-hour days that I didn't understand what she was going through. But in my head, I had this limited thought. I was like, well, maybe Mom, you just don't understand. You keep saying these things over and over again, but I didn't realize that she was laying a foundation. Also, when she passed away, I realized what she actually meant by what she said. She said, you could do anything that you put your mind to. And, she was very adamant about this. I remember one time my brother, was at school, and the teacher, he said that he wanted to be a quarterback. And the teacher said, "Oh, you're too short for that." My mom went down and about wrung her neck, about knocked this lady out, and said, "Don't you ever tell my son what he can't do." That was an impression that I had as a young kid. But also, too, I had this limited kind of thought of like, I could do anything. And then as I grew up, I realized that was going to be the foundation that I would build my life on. But when she passed away a couple of years ago, I realized that there was a little bit of a caveat. And that caveat was I could do anything that I put my mind to, but just because I could do it didn't make it right for me. And that part was hard for me to deal with, because there was things that as I started to work through, literally, like you put your mind to something, you can work it out. I can, figure out this discipline, figure out that discipline, whatever it was. But then I started to realize that not every single thing that I can do, I actually should be doing, and that is right for me. And this got driven home in Proverbs 24. And it's amazing the way that God works, because every single time that I think that, how are you going to be able to deliver? I was on my dog walk this morning and walking Ziggy. I walked Ziggy first, and then I walked Skylar second, and just to give Skylar a little bit of rest. But I was asking God, I was like, are you really going to be able to deliver every single day with Proverbs, and you're going to be able to deliver a different message? And what he let me know is, the first, son, you'll read the word, then the word will start to read you. The word will come alive, and when it comes alive, it will always read different because your circumstances are different, but my principles will always be true. And so in Proverbs 24 today, it exposes that the world will only give you a portion of the truth, but God wants you to know the truth in its entirety. So why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
We're celebrating all week because the Titans are on a 1-game win streak. We're absolutely undefeated this week, and it was unbelievable. It was a great game. There was a bunch of lead changes, all those things, and I thought we were going to give it up, and they missed the Texans missed a field goal, and we took the game. So we're on our streak right now, 1-game winning streak, undefeated. Boom, boom, boom. That's how we do it. As I was walking today, I literally was asking the Lord this morning, like, how are you going to be able to deliver? Like, is there going to be a time where you get a little bit tired? You know what I mean? You need to take a break. You took a break on the 7th day. That's what you said in the word. So are you taking a break today? You're going to take one tomorrow, whatever it is. And what he kept letting me know is just, principles will always be fresh like a stream. Whereas, sometimes if you look at it and you say you take like a pond, that pond is going to be stagnant, right? And he said, I'm just going to be fresh all the time. I'm going to be evergreen all the time. I'm going to be flowing all the time. And he said, as long as you're allowing me to flow through you, it's always, always, always going to be fresh. And he delivered today, and it was incredible because, as my mom would say to me all the time, that, you can do anything that you put your mind to. And that sounds so great, right? But then that caveat of just because you could do it doesn't make it right. And so as I started to look at, Proverbs 24 today, and listing it out in verse 1 and 2, it said, don't envy silliness. Don't envy silliness, because sometimes we get wrapped up and we see somebody who is silly but doing something that maybe we like the end result of what they're doing, and we start to like, oh man, should I be doing that? Well, what God is saying to you is like he wants you to do right work. Diligence is right work. Right work is knowing exactly what you were built for and just doing that work in your land. Probably one of the biggest struggles. I don't know that you guys struggle with it, but especially when you're given the keys to the kingdom, right? Because my parents were always giving me the thought process of, I don't know, but I know someone who does, and they'd lead my eyes to the Lord. And then I would be like, well, God owns it all. So if I go at this thing, it could work. But it just because you can doesn't always mean that you should. Right? And how can we discern that? How can we know between those things? Well, stay in touch with him, and that has a tendency to whoop you pretty good into shape. I'm going to pop some glasses on too, because that's where we're at in life. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Inchstones, where we go through the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. I had a couple of days off, and I've been a little sporadic in the last little bit, and I want to thank every one of you that is listening and following and sharing and commenting and all those things. And I had been on the road. I got a chance to do some speaking engagements, some keynote speaking, which I absolutely love, coming into a company and helping them to realize that the vibe of their leadership, their culture, their systems is, it's not the energy that you bring into that leadership, culture, or systems. It's the way that people feel about it. And how can we construct that vibe, right? How can we construct that in the way that people feel about it? It's helping them to realize that we lead with our heart, follow with our mind, and ultimately end up with our hands. And so when we take our heart, our mind, our actions, and we put them in line, we create an irresistible vibe, and people lock on to that leadership culture, those systems, and it can be amazing. So going into companies and corporations and conventions to do that is my absolute honor, and it's such an incredible thing. I was in Scottsdale, and then I got a chance to go outside of Nashville and do it. And honestly, like if you would have told me as a kid that I would have been out in the world speaking to companies and brands about the principles that my parents gave me when I was in 4th grade, I would have told you, well, I can believe that because they told me I could do anything, right? And so, but it's been absolutely phenomenal. In verse 3 and 4 in Proverbs 24, it says, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge are ingredients of a firm foundation. So if you want a firm foundation, look, ask yourself, is there wisdom, which is the right use of knowledge? Is there understanding, and is there knowledge? Do I have the knowledge of this thing? Do I have the understanding of it? And do I have the right use of that knowledge? And when that happens, then we can build a firm foundation. In verse 5 and 6, it says, wisdom, knowledge, and guidance prepare you for battle. And I would flip it around. If you're about to go into battle, ask yourself, have you sought out wisdom? Do you have the knowledge? And have you sought out guidance? Do you have guidance? Do you have guidance and counsel of people who have been in those spots and have been able to, get through those type of battles? Well, if not, then stop for a second, pump the brakes, and don't go into that battle. Be patient with it. Step back. I tell you, like I watched one of my friends, very good friends, David Hamilton, and it's amazing. His wisdom, his prudence, his patience. And it's not like he's trying to move fast, but he moves very precise. And then when he's precise, then he adds speed to that. And those two things, when you're precise and you have speed, you're undefeated. And in verse 7, it talked about that wisdom is too high for fools. I was trying to rewrite this a little bit, but that's exactly what the word says. Wisdom is too high for fools. And so when you seek wisdom, you separate yourself from all the people. The people say like, oh, well, eagles can't hang out with pigeons. And, we hear this, pigeon or eagles can't hang with turkeys. You hear this stuff and you're like, well, how can I avoid? Well, the greatest way to be able to avoid foolish behavior or foolish people is just by seeking wisdom, because wisdom is way too high for foolish people. And so they can't even get there. The admission is way too high. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to spend any energy on it. God's saying, just spend your energy on spending time with me, and then I'll separate everything else. It's so simple, right? But sometimes it's not easy, right? And so in verse 8 through 9, 23 through 26, and this is something that my mom would always say to me growing up also was that, people will see your heart. People will always see your heart, whether it be positive or whether it be negative. They're going to see your heart. And so you could try and cover up with technique. You can try and cover up with all the greatest methods in the world, but people will ultimately see your heart. If you're building a business, people will see your heart. They'll see your heart through your advertising, through your marketing, through your PR. You could have the greatest marketing PR strategy in the whole entire world, but people will always see your heart. So why not work on the one thing that people will always see? And how can we work on that? By just filling that heart up with wisdom. Where can we get it? It's from the fear of God, right? Fear of God is just the respect of him. When you spend time with him, then he imparts wisdom, and that will fill your heart. Once you fill your heart, your overflow of that heart will be your words. Once you start to speak it, then you'll start to do it. So when your heart, your mind, and your actions are in line, then that vibe becomes irresistible, and people don't even know why they want to be a part of you, but they want to. And in verse 10, wisdom will prepare you for battle. So we were talking about this earlier. Let's go back in verse 5 and 6. Wisdom, knowledge, and guidance prepare you for battle. And then in verse 10, it reiterates it again. Wisdom will prepare you for battle. So wisdom, once you get wisdom, knowledge and guidance will come, because it'll cause you, when you have wisdom, it'll cause you to go after knowledge because you have the right use of it. It'll cause you to go after counsel because it'll help to be able to foster patience in you and to be able to see that I need to see this whole picture as opposed to just diving right into battle. In verse 11 and 12, speak truth and life in love covered with grace. Let me say it one more time. Speak truth and life in love covered with grace. See, sometimes we take that, when I say out of context, sometimes we just do it incomplete, the whole sentence. Speak truth. Oh, I just need to speak truth. I just need to be harsh on people because that's just the truth. I just speak unfiltered truth. I completely understand that. But when you speak truth, but you also speak life, and you do it in love, and you cover it with grace so there's no judgment in it, it lights people absolutely on fire, and it can light you on fire when you have someone speaking truth to you and life to you in love, covered with tons of grace. And that's what God does to us every single day through his word. In verse 13 and 14, true wisdom will taste good and provide hope. If you're thinking like, is this real wisdom? Right, my buddy Will and I were talking about this last night. We were chatting, and he said, "What do you think about today, like our society or culture today?" And I said, "I just think a lot of times we just get an incomplete story. Sometimes we just get we don't get the whole story, and a lot of times, when we look at actual biblical wisdom, it's kind of counterintuitive to what the culture will tell you." Right? Or our culture and environment will tell you. And, so I got to explain a couple of those things, but what I want you to look at in verse 13 and 14 is true wisdom. It'll always taste good and it'll always provide hope. If it doesn't taste good and it doesn't provide hope, just be very, very conscious of it. My buddy David Hamilton sent me a text, and he said, what is it? Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is to know not to put that tomato in fruit salad. The right use of that knowledge, right? So in verse 15 and 16, 30 and 31 is work your land, your labor in other places will be futile. Work your land. I mean, this is again go back to what my mom had said, like, just because I could do it doesn't make it my purpose, right? Just because I could do it doesn't make it right. And when I work my land, what I was designed for, what my body was designed for, what my mind, what my heart was, it's amazing. I watch my brother, he works his land in his law practice, Cardenas Law Group. Honestly, like if you live in Las Vegas and you have any sort of challenge, any type of accident, anything like car accident, anything like that, there's only one answer, and that's Cardenas Law Group. The reason why, because he works his land. He's told me the other day, he said, I'm not the best, but I'm the best at what I do. Well, yes, he is, because he works his land. I look at, my friends who are in those things. I look at Patrick Umel. He works his land. I look at Rick Burkholder, the vice president of sports medicine and performance for the Kansas City Chiefs. He works his land. Like, he's not out there trying to do a bunch of other stuff. He works his land. And they are 10-1, but I did want to remind you, Rick, that the Titans are 1-0 this week, so we're still undefeated for this whole entire week. Just wanted to let you guys all know, just in case you were wondering. In verse 17 through 20, 28, and 29, take no thought of silliness, it has no value. Take no thought of silliness. Don't even entertain it. If it's silly, just toss it off to the side. You know what silly is. Silly is as silly does, right? It's what Forrest Gump. That's not even what he said, but I'm going to tell you that I quoted him right there. And in verse 21 and 22 is wisdom will render you blameless to God and to man. There's very, very few things that will transcend. But when we seek wisdom, we'll be in good graces with God, will be in good graces with man. And it doesn't mean that will always be. It doesn't mean that everyone will always agree, but you'll be blameless in those scenarios. If you honor God in what it is that you do, you truly seek wisdom in what you do, your business will be able to transcend. People would say it to me all the time, like, how could you just so easily talk about a relationship with God? And my answer is, it's the reason why I get to do what I do. So it's not like I'm trying to preach to someone or tell them about religion. It's not it. It's just absolutely what I believe. It's what is true in my heart and what goes through. So it doesn't have to come across that way. It'll render you blameless. In verse 27, understand your purpose, work your gifts, which is your land, and then build your life around them. This verse 27 in Proverbs 24, it literally encompasses it. It's a blueprint for you. It's amazing. It's like some people could call it like a life hack, but there's no shortcut to it. It's simple and it's not easy. Understand your purpose, work your gifts, which is your land, and then build your life around them. It's very, very simple. You do those things. It's amazing what can happen. And then as we finish up, wisdom will foster diligence, and diligence applied to your land will bring blessings exceedingly abundantly greater than you could ever imagine. Let me say it one more time. Wisdom will foster diligence, which is right work, and diligence applied to your land or your purpose will bring blessings exceedingly abundantly greater than you could ever imagine. As I thought about this, the question said, can you do it? Well, maybe. But when we ask the question, is it right for me? Is this right for me? God will impart the wisdom that will bring knowledge, understanding, insight, discretion, discernment, discipline, and strength to know that, like my mama said, you can do anything that you put your mind to, but just because you could do it doesn't make it right for you. And so I want to encourage every one of you to sit down and ask yourself, what is that thing that you were built for? What is your purpose? How can you figure it out? You just identify your gifts and then go give them away to the world. It's not going to be some profound thing. My wife has said this in the past. It's not going to be some huge, profound thing. It's going to be the simple thing that God has gifted you with, that it takes no effort at all for you to do it. And that is going to be that thing that you build your life around. And when you build your life around that, and you build your life around the wisdom to know that just because you could do it doesn't make it right for you can be amazing. I did want to let you know that our Substack is coming out. It's I believe it's going to release in the next week or two. Substack is going to be I'm going to be releasing the notes on there. It's going to be a subscription base. It's going to be awesome because people have asked me about the notes and to be able to have them because we go fast on episodes like this. But on Substack, it's actually going to release the handwritten notes to you. I'll show you my handwriting. My dad said that it was art when I was a kid, and I was very embarrassed of my writing as a kid. And my dad said to me, my pops was like, "Boy, it's your art. Nobody else could do it like you." And so we're going to be actually releasing on our Substack as opposed to doing, typing it out like every other one. It's actually going to be my handwritten notes. So it's a personal connection between you and I where, you'll be able to go through that. Then you can refer back to the podcast, listen here, watch it wherever you're at, and you'll be able to have my notes with you, which I think will be awesome. So, make sure that you drop a comment. I would love to know, do you love the podcast daily? Would you like them weekly? Do you want them bi-weekly? Whatever it is, send a comment to me. I listen to every single one of them. I respond to every single one of them. And I want to thank you guys all for tuning in to another episode of Inchstones, Proverbs 24. And just because I can doesn't mean that I should. So hopefully you have a phenomenal day. The Vibe Room is going to be coming up. It's actually going to be the Vibe Experience. It's going to be in April, full day, aligning your heart, your mind and your skills, doing that. And then we're going to have a Vibe Room that night. It's going to be an unbelievable day. But I want to thank you for tuning in, for commenting, for subscribing and sharing with all your friends. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no